Yo, he goes slow. He ain't no fool with the sonic speed, he just always cool.
Sonic the Hedgehog.
No fool. Come on, just show me what you got. Going fast is cool, going slow is not.
Sonic the Hedgehog.
No fool. Wild game, dude. 7 danger zones. You and Sonic speed through, or you are cashed, man.
Sonic the Hedgehog, the hot new game from Genesis Games. Systems and games sold separately.
No fool.
Sonic has stuck with me throughout the majority of my life, from its latest outings to his humble beginnings. The series has many ups and downs for me, but I've always considered the Mega Drive era, known by the fans as the Classic era, in high regards, to be some of my most replayed games ever. The Sonic craze was in full swing during the 90s. A lot of people were aware of some form of the Hedgehog, and it was thanks to my mum that my first exposure to the character was watching her and my older siblings play through one of Sonic's first outings. It's been over 30 years, so I'm not 100% sure what the very first video game I've played, but I'm pretty positive it was either the Master System or Mega Drive version of Sonic 1. While it wasn't the series that made me fall in love with gaming, that would be the Donkey Kong Country games, it made a huge impact on me, molding my taste. I became obsessed with the Hedgehog when I was a kid, reading the comics, watching the cartoons, drawing him and his pals, and even creating my own OC. Just like my video on the Donkey Kong Country games, this isn't so much of a review, but more so why I love this quadrilogy and what made them so special to me. Starting with At one point in time, this was considered my favourite Sonic game, which I don't agree with anymore. A couple of games have taken that spot, but it's still an all-time classic that I can easily boot up and have a comfortable time. Sonic 1 still looks great, from the luxurious Green Hill Zone, the ancient ruins of Labyrinth Zone with those Tozo-like statues, to the beautiful Starlight Zone. And the music by Masako Nakamura of the Japanese band Dreams Come True is so nostalgic to me. Same with the Sonic 2 soundtrack. The way Sonic animates was so striking to me compared to a lot of the 16-bit games I experienced at the time, and was faithfully carried over to the sequels. You can tell this is a guy with an attitude, just by putting down the controller for a moment, as he would be bored as hell waiting for you. They even went further in games like in Sonic CD, where he would just bug off, leaving you with an instant game over if you leave the game idle for 3 minutes. I've heard people throw the term first game syndrome towards Sonic 1, a term that gets thrown out without a care, usually as an insult when discussing first games in a series with noticeable faults. While the game does have noticeable issues that future titles would improve on, Sonic 1 is still amazing to play and nails most of the things it's trying to accomplish. It's not Street Fighter 1, that's for sure. The series is often mistaken for just going fast, and while that is an appeal to an extent, there is so much more on what makes these games special. Heck, the first game in its original form didn't even have the iconic spin charge, and to be honest, it doesn't need it. Sonic only has the ability to run, jump and roll, but thanks to the physics-based programming, slopes and multi-layered levels, Sonic 1 is a fun playground. Sonic can interact with these slopes and use them to either propel himself forward, increasing his speed, or even use them to get to higher places, which can result in either beating these levels faster or finding extra ditties such as an extra life and rings. If he curls into a ball while on a slope, he can slide down down extremely fast. Physics like these were rare around this time frame, which made this game stand out. Green Hill Zone is an amazing introduction level teaching you how these mechanics works, with plenty of paths and ditties to find. The Yoopy-Yoops and the tunnels at the beginning gives you that thrill of speed. But it's a little too good for an opening level, as it certainly raises expectations for later courses. Marble and Labyrinth are a lot slower in comparison, with less alternate pathways to explore and slopes to experiment with, but they do provide areas to discover and reward you for your curiosity, and there's at least a shortcut in each zone. I do agree that there is a lot of waiting in the Marble Zone, where there aren't many options to progress any faster, but it's not a big issue for me who has played many other games where progression crawls to a halt. To be fair, these are only 2 out of 6 zones that don't have many pathways, as Spring Yard, Starlight and Scrap Brain have multiple layers to them, with the highest paths rewarding with the most goodies and completion time. Exploration is a big part of the classic era games, and I think this is the first game's biggest strength. Even after 3 decades, I'm still discovering things about this game, from the shortcut in Labyrinth Zone to skipping the majority of the final act in Scrap Brain. Watching other people playing these games is sometimes a treat, and it's interesting how many people tackle this game. The series is also very forgiving, especially for reckless players such as myself, as the Hedgehog will stay alive as long as he has 1 ring in his pocket, and in thanks to the modern re-releases adding widescreen support, you have a better sense of where hazards will appear. While reckless players will probably get through fine, players who can keep their ring count to 50 will be rewarded at the end of each act, with a special stage, which besides getting you a chance to get a Chaos Emerald, will also get you a chance to get a continuation. I don't often go out of my way to enter special stages, and if you are playing the Origins edition where lives are meaningless, there isn't a whole lot besides a different ending if you get the Chaos Emeralds. But back then, these were a fun experience that helped me beat the game. Sonic 1 is a great game, but the next game improves on it in mostly every way. Out of these 4 games, Sonic the Hedgehog 2 is my absolute favourite, and my second favourite game in the series. Sonic 2 is a blast from beginning till the end, with multiple zones that don't overstay their welcome, only having 2 acts with the exception of Metropolis, which has 3 acts, and the final Death Head Zone, which is just a climatic fight against the cool looking Silver Sonic and the Death Head robot. It took me forever to beat the final boss, as he had no rings to help you, but finally beating him for the first time was truly satisfying. Even now, I do hesitate a bit fighting him. Each locale is so fun and diverse, each with their own unique features, such as Casino Night's pinball and slot machine gimmick that you can store yourself for some extra lives, and all your awesome slides and cannons. I even enjoy the slow-paced Ultra Story that is Sky Chase Zone, being the calm before the storm that is Wind Fortress Zone. The music certainly helps a lot. If you thought the first game was yakking and going fast, you won't be disappointed with the second game, as speed takes the forefront without using the appeal of what made the first game so great. While I do agree that Sonic 1 does not need the spin charge, I think the spin charge ability is a great addition, allowing you to always have an extra boost, us in this game in particular, to see how quickly I can beat each act, whether that be as the titular character or his sidekick Miles Tails Power, who made his grand debut here, though his Sinister Flight ability wasn't added until Sonic Chaos. I was using Tails during the multiplayer mode as a kid, which was one of my first exposures to a multiplayer game, and it was fun at the time. Now, I don't think anyone would want to hop on this mode with me. I loved Tails as a kid, and as someone with older siblings, I was often Tails pretending to contribute and helping out a little during the boss fights. Well, he was more of a hindrance when you were playing by yourself. Fuck! As well as the special stages, where he would always be one step behind you. The special stages are not fun, especially in the original version, where the draw distance is bad. Playing as Super Sonic is really cool to toy around with, and I liked how you can unlock him as soon as Act 2 of Emerald Hill Zone. But if I want to play as him nowadays, I would either enter the cheat code in the Level Select or the Ages version, where he's accessible by just beating the game once. I actually prefer the ending without getting all the 7 Chaos Emeralds, where Tails has his time to shine as the loyal sidekick, saving Sonic from falling from the Death Head. It strengthens their relationship, as opposed to the true ending where Sonic just turns super. Sonic 2 is short but incredibly sweet that is so easy to pick up and play. This was, however, the last game I was introduced to on the Mega Drive, as I didn't play the others till the post-Sega console era. My first exposure to Sonic 3 and Knuckles was on the Meta TXN on the GameCube, well after my exposure to the adventure titles. I think everyone who knows about these two is that they were meant to be one game, but due to time constraints, it was split up into two, but can combine them together as one title. I think everyone now considers them as one game. I remember getting stuck on the infamous Carnival Night Zone player and Sandopolis at 2 numerous times, but it felt so good when I got past them and beat the game for the first time. My favourite rival Knuckles the Echidna made his grand debut here. No, I was introduced to him in Sonic the Comic along with the Chaotix. Seeing Knuckles just knock out Super Sonic and steal the Chaos Emeralds was so cool, and I don't think any character has done that since. Still the definitive rival to this day. The way the zones organically transition together made the world feel so natural and enhances the storytelling without one word coming out of somebody's mouth or in a text. Even when fighting Knuckles during the Hidden Palace, you see a memorial of a giant robot in space, the Master Emerald, and a Hedgehog foreshadowing the events of the true final act. Tails and Knuckles can also go Super, as well as a new transformation if you get all the Super Emeralds. Tails gets his signature flight ability, and Knuckles is playable for the first time, able to glide and climb with his own pathways to explore unique to him. In fact, Knuckles has his own unique story set after the events of the game, where he fights Mecha Sonic in Sky Sanctuary, and man, this fight is so awesome. Mecha Sonic also has the ability to go Super thanks to the power of the Master Emerald, and trying to avoid his attacks was a thrill, being up there as one of my favourite boss fights in the series. Sonic also gains new abilities such as the Instant Shield, which is such a cool attack that can have a larger hitbox, and the Elemental Shields that give him new abilities, such as a dash attack with the Fire Shield. Each character has enough to make them stand out on their own to make each playthrough feel different, while keeping true to the core gameplay formula. Sonic 3 and Knuckles has more zones and are much larger than its predecessors, with multiple paths and secrets to find. Getting the Chaos Emeralds felt rewarding this time around, as you will be getting an extra boss fight with the Doomsday Zone, and help get Angel Iron back to its rightful place in the sky. The method of getting a Chaos Emerald is easier, as you need to find a giant ring to enter the special stage, which there are plenty in each act. I'm not as fond as the Bluesky as some others, but it's the best one out of the quadrilogy. Sonic 3 and Knuckles is a phenomenal game, and is the second best out of the quadrilogy, but I do have one more game to talk about. Sonic CD was originally released on the Mega CD, an add-on of the Mega Drive that had the ability to produce FMV cutscenes and CD audio, with Sonic CD being the best-selling title on the console. I was aware of CD thanks to the Mega TXN, as its opening and ending movies were introduced in the extras menu. The animations by Toei were absolutely gorgeous, and the song Sonic Boom that played there was an absolute bop. Not only is it a top tier Sonic opening movie, but one of my favourite video game openings ever. Sadly, the actual game wasn't included in this TXN, and I had to wait another 2 years to finally play CD on the Gems TXN, but it only featured the US soundtrack. I like both soundtracks, but I prefer the Japanese soundtrack that emphasizes more on house style music compared to the US more darker tone and use of a female singer. The USA soundtrack is still good, and there are some tracks I do prefer, like Tidal Tempest, as well as the previous mentioned opening theme, Sonic Boom. I did eventually play the Taxman and Stealth version on the PlayStation 3, which included both the Japanese and US soundtrack, as well as some quality life improvements like widescreen support, a playable Tails, and the spin charge from Sonic 2 and 3. The original version did have a spin dash, but it was vastly inferior. CD is the one I played through the least, and out of the quadrilogy, this is probably my least favourite, but that's more than it's trying to do something else. I think if you play this game normally, then it's not as fun as the rest, as getting from point A to point B is a breeze. The devs want you to explore from top to bottom and play around with the new time travel post. It's amazing how many variations of each level are there, each with their own unique yurts and tracks. You have the present, past, bad future, and dead future, reactor, which can only be activated if you destroy the generators from the past, and to do that you have to go back in time by hitting a past post and build enough speed. The real challenge is trying to build enough speed, which can be difficult in some areas, but it's really fun trying to build enough momentum. The acts normally have 2 springs on opposite sides to go back in time easier, but you can get creative in going on these rotors in Planetary Panic, or spin around on these cards in Mechanic Madness. I do kind of wish that you can use these posts an infinite amount of times, as it can be frustrating when you gain enough speed only to bump into a wall or another time post. The generators are for the most part fun to get for, but there were times where I got lost, most notably in Wacky Workbench, where the generator is hidden underneath a moving platform that would usually kill you instantly if you stand below it in any other circumstance, except here. Levels that only last a minute or two if you were playing normally can last way longer if you were exploring around each zone, as you will be going left, right, up and all around. Destroying all the generators gets you the dead ending, but destroying them is a reward in itself to see how the world of Little Planet changes in the future as if you were playing it normally. If you want to get the dead ending but don't want to explore, then you can just enter the special stages in a similar vein as Sonic 1, and these special stages are alright to play with some groovy visuals. Despite some issues, I still really like CD, and it does have things I like about classic Sonic, like exploration, colourful visuals, animations, great music, and how replayable it is. I can easily play these 4 games at any time of the year and still have a blast with all 4, with Sonic 2 and 3 being some of my favourite 2D platformers of all time, as well as some of my favourite games ever. I had a frustrating time playing these games as a kid. I remember dying to the likes of Labyrinth Zone at 3 and Sandalopoulos at 2 numerous times, but these 4 games have taught me that failure isn't much of a failure, but to improve to get better. The say the learning curve, if you will. These games may not be for you, but I do recommend at least giving them a few tries. Who knows, it might hit with you as it did for me. These games are now highly accessible, especially Sonic 1 and 2, which are given out like candy. They are on the same level as Street Fighter 2 and Pac-Man when it comes to how many times they were re-released. All 4 games are available on the Origins collection, which is the best way and most beginner-friendly way to play them, as it features widescreen support, unlimited lives, and the ability to retry the special stages. You can play as Tails and Knuckles in all 4 titles, with Sonic 1 adding new paths and secrets for them. Origins is also the only version where you can play as Amy Rose, so now she can take her revenge on Metal Sonic for kidnapping her. If you have played these 4 games, I would love to know which one is your favourite. For me, it would go Sonic 2 first, then Sonic 3 and K, then Sonic 1, and finally CD. Next time, I'll be getting out Sonic's 20th anniversary title, the handheld version, and the Shadow expansion for the re-release of the game. I hope you look forward to it.